This is Peace Talks, the podcast that covers everything to do with competitive jigsaw puzzling. I am Rob Shields, your host. Yvonne Feucht was the individuals champion of the 2022 U.S. Nationals competition, is the current overall leader on speedpuzzling.com, and is the second member of the Golden State Puzzlers team to appear on the show. We talk about everything from what it's like to compete on the national and world stage to the best way to spend your 40th birthday. Yvonne Feucht, thank you for joining Peace Talks.
Thank you for having me.
I have been a big fan of yours since I first saw you in the 2022 U.S. Nationals. I have a ton of questions for you, but let's begin at the beginning. What were your first puzzle memories?
I puzzled with my mom, and we were poor, so the only puzzle we had was the one we picked up at some yard sale somewhere, and it was missing 3 pieces. But it was always we always would puzzle on the dining room table together, and that
Same
was about
puzzle
it.
over and over again?
Pretty much. Maybe at some point we got some new ones, but I distinctly remember this one
Tell
puzzle.
me about it.
If I saw the image, I would definitely be like, that's it. But it's a bunch of piles of knickknacks. There's sunglasses in one corner, 3 or 4 pile of paper clips in another, binder clips on, just rubber bands. It's just piles of colorful knickknacks.
I believe I've heard you say that you like a busy puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Is this where that comes from?
Maybe. Maybe. Yeah, I never really thought about it, but maybe it was that.
So you had a lot of opportunities to practice on a busy puzzle. Did you have a peculiar interest in puzzling growing up, or was it just it was just a thing like most kids have?
No, it was just something, pastime for me and my mom to do together, and sometimes, and we didn't do it often. We did it maybe 2 or 3 times a year, maybe. That's it. I didn't really get into puzzles, want to buy and do more puzzles until I want to say 2018, 2019.
What kicked that off?
I don't actually know. I would casually puzzle with my college buddy every time now and then. When we would go get together, we'd go first. When we first graduated, we were poor, so we would just find the cheapest puzzle and split it, and then hang out and do a puzzle together, and we would do that every so often, and then we got our careers going, so we pick more fun puzzles and stuff like that.
So it was a hangout opportunity for you.
Yeah, and it wasn't something that I did outside of hanging out with her. And then at some point I started picking up just doing a puzzle on my own, and I started putting puzzles on my wish list. She also is the one who is you're fast, you should find a contest. And then in 2019 I put a bunch of puzzles on my Christmas wish list. I got a bunch, and then I joined the Burbank swap group so I could get some other puzzles.
So you weren't going for speed particularly. Did you feel like you wanted to get them done fast, or did you just sort of, sounds like your friend recognized your skill early on, were you just by default going fast?
I guess by default I was just really good at picking out details and mashing them together, I guess you would say. She would do a section and she'd be like, I can't figure this out. And I would come over and I got to put it all together, and she would be like, oh, you're really good at this. But, I puzzled with her to hang out, not to compete or anything.
Right. So what changed your mind in terms of deciding that maybe a competition is something you were interested in?
Well, it's because she kept saying that. And then I Googled puzzle competitions. And the ones I found were Pacific Puzzlers in San Diego. But it's teams of 4 usually. So I don't have a team, and driving to San Diego is, big chunk of your day.
Because you're in Northern California?
No, I'm in Los Angeles. It's the 3-hour drive, if you get lucky with traffic. And then, so it's something 5 or 6 hours round trip. And then if I go there and I don't know anyone, if I don't get stuck without a team, is it worth it?
Right, it's a risk.
And then also the other one I saw was Winter Carnival, and that one was also, team-based, and also how do I sign up without a team? You can't, right?
Right, and it's much farther away.
Yeah, and that that kind of commitment was like something I was like, I don't want to buy a plane ticket for something that might not happen. So I was like,
But it sounds like you were considering it.
Yeah, in 2019, I was considering it. I was looking at stuff. And then.
Did you even in 2019 know any other people who were puzzling for speed?
Well, no, because I just only puzzled with my college buddy when we hung out, and that's it. And then by myself. And like also when I puzzled by myself, like I wasn't considering speed at all because I wouldn't dump out the pieces. I would just look through the box.
Right. You weren't trying to be fast. It just happened.
Yeah, I would take a box. Let's see, I have a box. And I would just open it, and then I would dig through it. I would dig through it, find a piece that I thought would go somewhere, and then I would put it down. And then like I would only do 1,000-piece puzzles because I wanted to stretch out the time more. And then I would also like if you're puzzling out of the box, that takes more time too. So like that, subconsciously I was doing all these things to like slow down my puzzling.
Right. Right. So you were trying to make it the experience that a lot of people like about jigsaw puzzling is the, opportunity to take your mind off of something and just kind of casually relax and put some like create order out of chaos. The opposite of what speed puzzlers typically are trying to do.
Yeah. So, I wasn't really thinking speed puzzling until, I looked up things, but like it never really panned out. But then COVID hit, and then, I found the Zoom contest that Jonathan does.
Yeah, speedpuzzling.com.
Yeah. So I think June 2020 was my first contest.
Did you do anything to prepare for that?
Well, since it was COVID, it was really hard to get puzzles.
That's right.
But I did buy a couple 500-piece puzzles and time myself on them, and try to like think about strategies and stuff.
And he had not conducted very many puzzles many competitions by that time, so it wasn't like you had a lot of things to compare it to.
No, and it was really hard to get any of the other puzzles that he had done.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was like no way to compare.
So how was your first competition?
I think I did it in 1 hour and 15 minutes or something. It was the balloon puzzle by Ravensburger.
Right.
And I can't remember where I placed, but I mean, there wasn't that many people back then either. Like it was not even filled up a full sheet.
Right.
Page, right? So, but I was fast because Allie messaged me and it was like, hey, you're in Southern California and you're pretty fast. Do you want to join our team for the World Championships?
Oh, I was wondering how that happened. So you're talking about Ali Krasny as you're one of your teammates on Golden State Puzzlers.
Yep.
So it was on the heels of your first competition that she reached out?
I think it was either first or second. It was like, I definitely know it was like in the summer. So it was like maybe after the July competition we did. I don't know. It was like very, very soon after I started.
Wow, that must have been encouraging.
Yeah, it was. Back then they had different parameters for Worlds. Like it was like more of a marathon. It was like an 8-hour team event. And I can't remember how many puzzles they did, but they did like 4 or something like that. But you could have up to 8 teammates, but only 4 at the table, so you could switch in and out.
Interesting. So this would have been for 2020s?
Mm-hmm.
The World
but they
2020?
Yeah, and then they canceled that one, of course. They had one for 2021, but then they postponed that one to 2022. And then by that time, they changed the parameters to just be a regular team contest.
Right. I only picked them up in 2022, so I wasn't aware that it was so much more marathon focused.
I think the first one was in 2019, pre-COVID, right before COVID, and it was an 8-hour team competition, yeah.
So Allie reaches out to you. Sounds like you were on board. Did it take any consideration, or were you like, yeah, of course?
Yeah, no, it was pretty immediate. I was like, yeah, that sounds like fun. Let's do it.
And you ended up signing up for Worlds, which didn't happen that year, it sounds like.
Well, I think 2020 was already canceled, but they were talking about 2021. And then 2021 ended up being postponed to June 2022. And then that's the first one I went to. That was actually the first time I ever competed in person.
I love that your first competition is on the world stage. Like you traveled
Yeah.
halfway around the world.
I think I did one team in person one, and then Worlds was like the first solo individual competition I ever did live.
So what did you do between the conversation with Ali and going off to Worlds? Were you practicing with her team, or it was COVID time? So how did that work?
Let's see. Well, first I signed up for Jonathan's contest. So I did the monthly Jonathan contest. And then Andrew Bradburn was also on the team back then when it was like more than 4 people. And he lives like a mile away from me. And Tammy lives in LA as well. Tammy McLeod was on the team. And then she's in LA as well. So she was like, we had a group chat and they were like, oh, let's get Yvonne some puzzles to practice with. So they gave me a whole bunch of puzzles and they had times on them because they had passed it around throughout the team to like practice with. So like I could compare and stuff. I was the slowest for a while.
Was that intimidating?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But then like once my time started to improve. So like I remember the first time I went under an hour, and I remember which puzzle. It was part of like Jonathan used to have this monthly unofficial contest where you just submit times and then he would just list all of them. I remember doing that because it was COVID times and I had all the time, and then it's like I remember when I first hit under an hour.
And that was for a 500?
Yeah, for 500. And I think I can't remember anyone else on the team had done that at that time. So
on the team at that time, because it sounds like there were more than 4 folks. There was yourself, there was Ali, there was Andrew, there was Tammy.
And then Kevin Strins, he's in San Diego as well. So there was 3 in San Diego and 3 up in LA. And then we got together to practice before the 2021 Worlds that got postponed, because they postponed it like I want to say like only a month or 2 before. And so like we were getting together to practice because we thought we were going.
Right.
And then we didn't go. So, but there's other contests out there that we participated in, like usually virtually over Zoom, but there's like the Duluth Derby was virtual for a while. The Holiday Derby was fun. Winter Carnival had a virtual component for a little bit.
So you had opportunities to compete as a team, even if it wasn't in person with other teams.
Yeah. And then like San Diego, Pacific Puzzlers picked back up at some point, and then every now and then I would make the drive to San Diego to meet up with all the San Diegans and then do a in-person contest.
Now that you knew that if you went down there, there would be people to hang out with and meet against.
Yeah.
At some point, you start doing speed puzzling competitions with Tammy. Was Golden State Puzzlers how you ended up meeting her?
Yeah. So Ali is the one who introduced me to her through the team, and then we would get together and do puzzles, and we would do the Zoom contest, the pairs division all the time, and sometimes we would just Zoom race each other over Zoom. We got like the same puzzle, and then that was COVID times when I had more time to puzzle.
Are you naturally a competitive person? Because it sounds like if you and she are hopping on calls to duke it out, that maybe you're both a little competitive.
I guess so. Maybe. I don't know. I was on the swim team as a kid, but I wasn't really like, I'm going to be the best or something like that.
Did the world of speed puzzling make you more competitive? Like, were you more competitive in speed puzzling than you've perhaps been elsewhere?
I definitely think so, because I'm definitely like finding other people's times and making sure that if I have the puzzle, I'm going to like try and beat that time. Or like I'm always like scrolling through the Spanish competition website and like looking at their puzzles and seeing Tammy and I both do it because a lot of their competitions are pairs. So we're like, can we get this puzzle here in the States?
Right. And Spain seems to have a much deeper culture of puzzling. I remember a while back looking at the Spanish puzzling website scores, and there were just so many of them.
Yeah, they have an older and way larger puzzle community, I think, over there. I feel like they've done it for a while and they have like a really solid base over there.
Do you remember what it was like to go to Worlds the first time?
Well, it was COVID still.
So it was complicated.
So you had to like have your COVID vaccination forms to get in the country, and then like you mask up as much as you can, and then but yeah, I do remember it. I remember choking on individuals because it was my first time. And just like too much panic.
Is that right? So when you say you choked, like how did that actually manifest itself?
I just remember like staring at the puzzle and being like, I should do this section. No, I messed that up. I shouldn't do that section. I should go to this section first. And then like just not being able to pick out a strategy and not being able to like focus. I was just like moving around too many. I would like sort out pieces that I thought I would do, and then I was like, no, that's a bad idea. I shouldn't be doing this. And then I would like move the pieces back out of the puzzle, and like, no, what are you doing?
And this is despite you having, at this point, at least plenty of virtual puzzle competition practice. So there was something meaningfully different about being in person, maybe about being in Spain at Worlds, that made this more pressure scene.
Spain at Worlds, and then also you have the camera people. They like flock over to that table and you're like, oh no, that person's ready to finish. And then they come over to your table and you're like, as soon as they come over, you can't put a piece in. They're like close up on your hands and you're like, nope, not happening anymore.
We had that experience actually at the last nationals on our teams where like the cameras came wandering over and suddenly we were like, uh-oh, we should place something at least for the camera.
Yep.
So you had said that it was sort of this experience in Worlds that had you start working on coping mechanisms for high pressure puzzle situations. Have you been successful at developing such things?
No, not really. Obviously I figured for the second time that I competed in person individually was nationals. And obviously I figured something out. But I think it was just to like talk to myself or the puzzle, because I don't panic as much when I'm in pairs or teams, and I think it's because I have somebody to talk to. And so I was like, all right, if I need somebody to talk to, I just gotta talk to the puzzle, I guess.
My wife is similar in that she says she likes having pairs or teams, so she has somebody else to blame. You can all share in it. So do you find yourself talking to puzzles all by yourself then?
Yeah, I don't do it as much when I'm like practicing at home or anything, but when I'm in competition, I'll start talking to it.
You must be fun to sit next to.
Yeah, I don't talk that loud, but I do remember hearing some of my mutterings on my video for nationals. And right? I was like, I think if you turn it up all the way, you can hear me basically like, why is this piece not going in? Am I allowed to swear? Because I was swearing. I was swearing at the piece.
Do you remember much of the details of your first nationals event?
Not too much. I went in just hoping for top 10, and because there's a lot of fast people there, and I was like, that also, competed in Jonathan's thing, so you know how the times stack up before you go in. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll just aim for the top 10 and we'll see what happens.
And you started nationals with a team event, and your team did well. And you had you weren't able to work with the Golden State Puzzlers as a full team because two of your members are part of the committee.
Board, yeah. So Allie and Tammy couldn't participate. So we got Kevin, who was originally part of that 8-person marathon team, and then Alyssa Zackler, who through the COVID years of puzzling, I met on Instagram. And then we became puzzle buddies too, because she's up at Santa Clarita, which is like 20 minutes away from Burbank, where I live. So I was like, oh yeah, you like puzzling too? And you're pretty quick. Let's do it.
Nice. Well, it seemed to have worked out. Third place is not so bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you had pairs the following day, and you ended up pairing with Sarah Schuler.
Yep.
How did you connect with her?
Also through the Instagram, the Puzzlegram. I was like, hey, I don't have a pair because Tammy's busy running the thing. So do you want to pair up? And she was like, yeah. And we paired up because none of her people from Minnesota went.
Oh, is that right?
Either, yeah. I don't know if I don't think she met Lauren at the time, but I know like Dawn and Andrea didn't go that first time around. And then, so we paired together, but it was definitely neither one of us' puzzle. It was like a nature grass the scene, and we're like, nah, that's not us.
Not busy enough for you?
Yeah, we both like colorful, fun, not photography puzzles.
So then you had a relatively full week or weekend of competition by the time you get to the individuals, which happened in the afternoon after the pairs. Can you walk us through kind of your experience of the individuals event?
Oh God, it's been so long.
I know.
My husband was taking photos for the event, and so he would come around and take photos of me, and then I'd be like, it was fun to hear it from his side because he can see everyone, mm-hmm. and I couldn't, so I didn't know where I was. So like he's like on the afterwards. So like when I was doing it, I guess I'll start there. When I was doing the puzzle, I was like, oh, cool. I'll just try not to freak out like I did in Worlds. And then I was like, okay, I'm not doing the solid colors first. Absolutely not.
Right.
And then,
for those who don't know, this was an illustration, a San Diego illustration with large blocks of solid color.
Yeah. So I think I did the USA logo first because it was the most familiar to me, right? And then I did the orange roof, which I think almost everyone did. And then like all the busy part of the puzzle I did first because that was the easiest for me. And then I went into I started with the smallest solid color section as I could, and then expanded from there. And then I think almost everyone ended in the blue. I know a couple of people who like did the yellow block, the sun and the clouds first, and then did the busy part. But I think everyone still ended in the blue. And then I was just like, no one's clapped or yelled. I think my hands were shaking by then because I was like, I might be in the running. Oh no. And then I was like, afterwards I was like, did I win?
Was it immediately obvious to you, or did it take a minute to sink in?
I mean, so I wasn't too sure if there was like a quiet finish because some people finish quietly and then they just like walk away from the table. And like, I was like, was I first? Because I didn't hear anyone clap or scream. I thought people would definitely clap or scream for first, right? And they were like, yeah, you're first. And I'm like, okay. My husband tells the story of him like taking photos, and he's like walking around to all the tables, and he was like, he's like, oh, she's doing pretty good. And then
did
like
he come by and give you updates?
Not really, because he didn't want to throw me off and he didn't want to disqualify me by accident or anything like that. So he would just like come by and be like, you're doing great, like like a very generic cheer from the husband.
That's right. Go you.
And then I think he was like, yeah, and then it got closer, and then to the end, and then I was like, oh crap, she might actually win this one.
You were aiming for top 10. Mission accomplished.
Yeah. Yeah. What I think what also helped, we might have to edit this out, but so the camera team that they had for the first year of nationals was cracked me and my husband up because I work in the film industry, mm-hmm. and in camera specifically. Right. So like there were so many things we overheard that would just crack us up because they were pretty amateur. And the older guy running it, I don't know if if you see the live stream, you probably see him in the background, but he had these younger kids on the camera, and every now and then you would hear him be like, oh, these green newbies or something, and storm off and some other things. And then my husband was taking photos, and they would be like, "Oh, please don't bump into the tripod. You know, this thing with three legs."
Oh no!
And my husband, who works for Jimmy Kimmel Live, and Jimmy Kimmel Live, is just like, "Yeah, I got it. No worries." But I guess he got to talk to some of them, and then they normally do like dental conferences and stuff. So they're like, "This is really interesting and really cool," and they were totally unprepared as well, because they couldn't keep up to the pace of the competition and like people finishing and stuff like that. They
don't move that fast.
No, they don't. But like at some point, I keep overhearing the old guy talk about like shutter speed and ISO to somebody, and like I can't remember the comment, but it made me laugh. And I was like in the middle of competing, and it helped settle my nerves.
Oh, nice. That reminds me, you mentioned your husband's taking pictures, and I often see when you're not actively participating, you are in the background taking pictures. And when you are participating, your husband's taking pictures. What's going on there?
We just kind of volunteered to take photos for the USA JPA. But I do that at Worlds too for the USA JPA, but it's quite a time suck, so I don't know how I'm going to keep doing it. Now we're talking about doing team practices while we're not puzzling, and like it's like a more serious process. So like I don't have as much free time at a competition as I used to when we were just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I was sort of surprised because, forgive the pun, it seemed like it would pull focus from your your competition. It's just everything I have ever watched, I'm like, oh, there goes Yvonne.
Yeah, I mean, like I like doing it, and also it's kind of also like one of those coping mechanisms where I hide behind the camera so I don't have to talk to people. Like when I do a puzzle, so I don't have to make eye contact with people when I talk to them.
What was it like having all the cameras turned on you? I'm going to say at nationals individuals, but you've probably had that experience all kinds of times now. How do you like being on the other side of the camera?
Not as much, but I mean, like now I've gotten used to it. I feel like, because it's been 2 Worlds and 2 Nationals now, and so like every time the camera comes over, it doesn't freak me out as much. The first 2 times were like really the Worlds was especially rough. I definitely did not put any pieces in when the cameras were on me. But now I've gotten better at ignoring the camera, but the cameramen not so much. When I hear them talk, I'm always like listening.
I mean, at least in part, in case they say something funny and it calms you down.
Yeah, well, that was a different scenario.
The teams or the camera folks have been higher quality since then, I imagine.
The Spanish ones are always interesting. Well, they're usually talking about the competition and people, but whenever I take photos though over there's always like one grumpy one that's like, it gives me a grunt and tells me to get out of his shot, and it just grunts at me. I'm like, oh, sorry.
So you win the nationals in 2022 in the individuals. I assume that drastically changed your life. I assume that people were everywhere waving at you, pointing at you.
No, absolutely not.
Did anything change? Did you notice anybody recognize you, or did you get high fives from work?
No one at work recognizes me. But there's enough people who know now, though, that they will bring it up to other people at work and be like, "Did you know she was the national champion?"
I can imagine if I had done that everywhere I'd be like, "But did you know I got first place at the national jigsaw puzzle competition?"
I don't like to brag, so I didn't talk about it much. But this past year, when I went to the nationals, I was in the middle of a shoot for actually Mythic Quest season 4. Their set had lots of TVs on it around. I don't know if you've ever seen the other seasons, but they have lots of TVs in their various sets. So they ended up live streaming the individuals prelim I was in.
That's amazing.
On the set and up on the TVs, and like everyone would take And I think when just before I finished, they took a break, like a 5-minute break to watch me finish, and and then everyone texted me photos and videos of them like clapping for me for finishing and stuff,
That's awesome.
which was great.
Did your son think you were cooler?
No, no, absolutely not.
So at some point after this, I noticed that the Golden State Puzzlers become a sponsored team. How did that come about?
Well, going back to my kid for a second, though, like at some point we were talking about world famous. I think we went by a restaurant that said world famous pizza or something, and he was like, "What do you think? What does it mean by being world famous?" And I was like, "Oh, that means like people around the world know who you are." And he's like, "Are you world famous?" And I was like, "Yes, people." People in people in Australia know my name, and people in Spain know my name. So I think that is right.
Absolutely.
And then he was like, and then my kid was like, "That's kind of cool."
Yeah, because you can legitimately say that people you do not know on the other side of the world know who you are. Yeah, that's pretty good. How old is your boy?
8.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the only cool thing he thinks. Although my husband, this past nationals, I guess he met somebody in the elevator who was like, "Oh, you're Yvonne's husband? You're famous adjacent." So he thinks that's hilarious. He's famous.
Yeah, I mean, I would hold that over my wife if that were true.
Okay, because sponsored team. How did Golden State? I can't remember exactly. I know Allie's the one who like brought it up, but then we've designated Lindsay Steenstra, our other teammate, as the team manager.
Oh, what does that mean?
Nothing really. She just like calls ahead to. There's a tabletop gaming place in Orange County, which is kind of halfway between San Diego and here, where we meet up before like some of the Orange County speed puzzling events, and she'll call up and reserve a table for us to practice on. That's the extent. And then when Allie got the idea to reach out to Cobble Hill for sponsorship, Lindsay was the one who spearheaded that, because both Allie and Tammy are on the USA JPA board, and they didn't want to kind of cross.
Oh, that makes sense. It's a political conversation in a way.
Yeah. So we designated Lindsay, and Lindsay took it upon herself, and she did great. They paid for a part of our trip to Spain last year, and then they paid for most of our expenses to Winter Carnival, and then we have a coupon code, Golden 1, to get, I think it's 25% off of your entire purchase, and Golden 2 to get free shipping on like orders over $75. I think you look it up.
Yeah, I'm looking it up. It's 25% you're right. I think you're exactly right. 25% off using Golden 1. And then Golden 2 gets you free shipping if you spend over $50. So you are officially a coupon. Yep.
We are. We actually have business cards with the QR code to the thing, so we hand them out everywhere, and then like we try to, return their investment in us a little bit. But
I mean, I feel like you're really professional when somebody sponsors you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because then you're kind of obligated to go. You have to commit to going. You have to commit to promotion of their stuff like that.
I could just imagine as puzzling becomes even more popular that you're now obligated to go to meet and greets and shake the hands of important people at other companies that Cobble Hill wants to relate to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we still have we still have room on our shirt if somebody else wants to sponsor us. We only got part of the funds for Spain, and we're gonna.
It's more opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You need to talk to like Zatko or somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I heard that there was a special event for your birthday.
Well, I turned 40 last year.
Congrats on making it that far.
Woohoo! And I was like, what do I want to do for my birthday? I want to get a bunch of friends together and just puzzle all weekend. And so I just reached out to a bunch of people that I would love to puzzle with. And I was like, hey, if I get an Airbnb in the mountains of, around Los Angeles, you guys want to come and puzzle with me all weekend? And then a lot of people said yes, and then we all went and did it, and it turned into a thing. And they named it Puzzle Camp. I had nothing to do with that name, but that's what stuck. And then we brought a ridiculous amount of puzzles, and Allie made me an awesome birthday cake with puzzle piece shapes. It was she modeled it after a Ravensburger box. Wow. There was like a blue corner and everything. And she said there were 40 pieces on top. I didn't count them, but she said there were 40 pieces. And then Tammy cut me. She's getting into cutting puzzles too. She cut me a special birthday puzzle too.
Nice.
It was great.
Classic.
I was like,
actual used a jigsaw, sort of jigsaw.
Yeah. Actual used a jigsaw. We didn't really plan too much of the weekend out, but we had enough puzzles and people that we just came up with things on the fly and just did stuff.
Nice. That sounds like it would have been a ton of fun. Was it everything you had hoped it would be?
Yeah. It was the best 40th birthday I could ask for. That was exactly what I wanted. So
you do a lot of puzzles, which is to say, if you follow you on Instagram, you've got a lot of puzzles to post, and you bring a lot of puzzles to work. How does puzzles at work go?
Well, it depends the job I'm on, because I'm freelance and I go from TV show to TV show, and every TV show is different. But like some TV shows, they always carry 2 cameras no matter what. But some TV shows use mainly just 1 camera, and so me being the second camera will have lots of downtime. So I will just dump out a puzzle and start doing it. And then depending on the show, sometimes there's people that like really get into it and join me. And then sometimes it's just me and like one other person. Some shows, if a lot of people get into it, I'll just bring a 1,000-piece puzzle and I'll find a place to dump it out, and like we'll get it done in a day or two. Usually that's only if we're on what we call the stage, which is like, the sound stages on a lot, because then you're not moving around as much, and there's like a set place where you can go and do it. If I'm working on a show that has a lot of location work, which is where you go out on location and shoot, I don't usually dump out a puzzle because the carts are always moving. There's no good place to leave a puzzle for a long period of time. If I dump out a puzzle, it's going to be something I could finish in one sitting, like a 20, like one of those micro travel 100-piece puzzles, right, or something like that.
Right. You do puzzles at work. You seem to do a lot of puzzles at home. How many puzzles a week do you do on average, would you guess?
Okay, well, that's really tough. Right now, I'm on a show where I haven't been able to do puzzles after work. So, and then on the weekends, we've been fairly busy too. So I've been struggling to keep up with puzzle practice, which I feel bad because Tammy's retired now and she has all the time in the world to practice, and now she's faster than me. So, and now I have no time to practice. So I haven't been able to keep up.
Do you guys keep track of who's fastest? And do you think practice has something to do with who's faster?
Oh yeah. 100%. I think, because like right before nationals, I didn't have a show. So I was just like doing, like, if I don't have a show, and I'm training for something coming up, I can do 2 to 3 puzzles, the 500-piece puzzles a day. Maybe I'll fit in 1,000 just to, I use thousands for stamina.
I'm just going to put in 1,000. You do a couple of 500s, and if you have time, 1,000. Yeah.
I do thousands for stamina, because I feel if you're like, especially the team contest when it's usually like 2 1,000s, it's going to be, their world's cutoff is 3 hours. That's still a lot of time to be puzzling. So like, if I want to, I use the 1,000 as a solo when I do it solo as a stamina thing to just train my stamina to puzzle for that long.
Is your sweet spot 500s?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of a marathoner than a sprinter. Like I don't really win the 300s that often. Like 500s I'm decent at, but like I'm pretty fast at the 1,000s.
Oh, is that right?
Interesting enough. Well, also like busy puzzles take longer, so I always like, and the fast puzzles, like I feel like everyone does it really fast, and they always a bit faster than me. I think I would love to do this experiment again, but Jonathan had done this thing where he stopped the timer every 10 minutes and counted out how many pieces he had placed, and he had like more, he was faster in the beginning, slower in the middle, and then faster at the end. Whereas my curve was more steady. Like,
so he did that, and it wasn't just for him, it was for other folks to try that.
Well, he did that, and I don't think anyone else tried it, but I was like very curious. So I did it, but I did it on a more harder puzzle than I probably should have. I should have tried to see it. And I did it on 1,000 too, because I wanted to see the data across the whole thing. But I've always wanted to try to do it again and see on like an easier puzzle, and then like on a harder, like a 500 versus, like I've always wanted to see that kind of data, to see like where I slow down, and if there's like a way to like make myself go faster than during that time. I mean, it does make sense that you would slow down. You would be slower at the beginning. Well, maybe you'll be faster for a little bit because you have the edge and you do the edge if you do the edges first. But I feel like it definitely makes sense that you speed up at the end because you have less pieces and less spots. Like scientifically, mathematically, that just makes sense.
It's true. Although from time to time, the hardest things are at the end. So
yeah, that's also true.
You may only have 30 pieces, but they may be the hardest 30 pieces to place.
Yep.
Yeah, we have used video for some of that kind of piece per minute counting.
Oh, really? Oh, that's a good idea, because then you can just...
That way it doesn't interrupt our process. It can be hard especially if you're doing it in teams where there's lots of hands in the video.
The other thing I had to do was move like it was easier to group, especially 1,000. It was easier to move into groups of 10 to count it.
That's what I was thinking too, is the counting. I would start thinking about, okay, how do I do this in a way that I can make it easy for me to count every 10 minutes, which might not be the same thing as how do I go the fastest.
Exactly. So like, it'd be interesting. I think the video, you're onto something with the video idea. There was somebody from the 2022 Nationals that commented on, I think, one of Karen's videos, or maybe it was the live stream, one or the other, that had and made a graph of pieces left with me versus her.
Oh, neat.
It was pretty interesting. And I was like, oh man, maybe that's what I should do. Videotape myself and then just count versus that's a great idea.
I now want to shoot from underneath the table on like a glass top because it might be easier to, like, you could probably write some software to count pieces that way.
But is a glass top going to slow you down?
Well, according to Allie, it will.
That's right. She's puzzles on the glass top. Or she used to,
That's
at least.
Right. She said she had data that showed that was a bad idea. So she stopped doing it.
Oh, it must have been her speed run. Right. Yeah.
That's right. Have you ever done any of the speed runs?
I did one run of the intentional kindness puzzle twists, but I didn't do it again. I have so many puzzles that I was like, I just want to get rid of all these puzzles, and then.
So, do you do puzzles more than once? Or are you a strict once sort of person, or?
I've done puzzles more than once. I don't think I've ever done puzzles more than 2 times. But I was considering doing this year's speed run a couple times in a row just to see, and I figured it would still be practice. But my schedule is like so slammed this year. Like we're going to China for 2 weeks, and then by the time I get back, it's like going to be 1 month out from Worlds.
Wow.
and I leave for China right after I finish this TV show, and like this TV show really hasn't helped me. No time whatsoever to practice.
So how does your team get ready for Worlds?
So we were just discussing this the other day. We're like, when can we schedule practices? So usually we schedule a kind of like a puzzle boot camp. We either get a hotel that's halfway between us and bring a large table to squeeze into the hotel room and do a whole bunch of puzzles in a row. Or I think this year they wanted to do more than one night. And we were just saying if it was more than one night, we didn't want to pay for a hotel room. So either Tammy or I will host and they'll come up here. And then we also arranged, we do some day camps, I guess you could say. We're going to do one, I think in July, where we just meet up at that tabletop game place and then just puzzle on that, rent a table and puzzle all day.
When you get together for practice, are you doing specific things? Are you focusing on specific things? Or are you really just trying to get the reps in, as it were, and do lots of pieces?
Well, we do a debrief at the end of the puzzle and say, well, what can we do faster? What slowed us down? How'd we feel? Blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. I do think it helps to puzzle more often. I think it helps that the individuals are also practicing on their own too. I do remember, I didn't watch the live streams, but I do remember some, like, they knew they weren't going to be the fastest pair, but they were going to be the most practiced pair or something like that. Right. And it worked. They placed, I think.
Interesting. I wonder who that was.
Yeah. It was one half of Wicked Quick. I think it was them I was pretty sure it was them that said, we're not going to be the fastest pair, but we're going to be the most practiced pair. And they put in the time and it
worked out.
It worked really well.
It helps that they're pretty okay puzzlers to begin with, but
yeah.
Do you and Tammy practice pairs?
We also have discussed doing this, but
not not on an ongoing regular basis.
No, we tried to, but work and life. If I could retire like Tammy, it would be much easier. I have a family, I have a young kid. I have a husband that also has a hobby that he likes to go off and do, and therefore I will be home with the child.
You're making a lot of poor decisions, I'm hearing.
So, and then Tammy and I started this YouTube venture, which also, takes a lot of time. Yeah. So do I do the YouTube thing or do I practice puzzling?
So what about individual practicing then? Do you do intentional focus practice? Do you practice with the intent of working on something specific, or are you mostly, again, just trying to get a volume of pieces done?
I haven't really thought about doing well, that could be a lie, because sometimes I'm intentionally doing a whole bunch of animal puzzles to work on fur. Yeah. Because I think fur is one of the worst things to puzzle. Fur and flowers. So I just intentionally torture myself so I can be better at the torturous parts.
Yeah, well, you're shoring up your weaknesses and trying to make them stronger.
It's fur and flowers, and then this past nationals made me realize I hate photography. So I'm going to look for more photography photos.
Which feels ironic.
Yes, very much so.
Do you work on physical stamina?
I try to do core exercises because it's I feel like you're the weakest link when you're puzzling for long times is your lower back, right? And so I feel like if you can shore up if you can have that strong back, you won't be thinking about that as opposed to the puzzle on the table, right? Otherwise, you're constantly thinking about how to alleviate your back pain.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my team this year at Nationals was called Advil Up for exactly that reason.
Yeah, so like I haven't had time to work out either, but usually I, supplement with like a yoga and core exercises to, but also, like I said before, if I do 1,000-piece solo, that's like my stamina training.
I do love the idea of before major puzzling events, like jigsaw puzzlers just getting ripped. You got to get that core in.
Just their core is
Yeah,
ripped.
that's right. I can sit in one place hunched over for hours. I want to kind of walk through, if you don't mind, how you approach a puzzle when you're competing. I'm just going to step through what I think are sort of the various stages of like once you're engaged in a competition. And you can speak to this, whether it's individuals or teams or pairs, doesn't matter to me.
The first thing is when you open the box, you either say, "Oh,"
you need to swear about the picture that you have.
Yeah, you either swear about the picture or you're like, "Yes, I can do this." Most of the times, you swear about the picture, but
yeah, that is my experience as well. That was not in my notes, but that's a good one. Do you do anything before you actually get to the point of opening a puzzle? Like, do you have pre-game rituals? I've seen you do warm-ups from time to time. I don't know if that's a standard way that you do things.
Lindsay likes to do warm-ups.
I feel like I've seen you.
And EB likes to do warm-ups as well. Usually I set up my GoPro. That's what I usually do. And then if everything's set up, then that's when I get really nervous and I have to try to figure out how to calm myself down. I always get nervous right before, like not like an hour before or anything, but like when I'm sitting at the table and it's like 5 minutes before countdown, then I'm like, what am I doing?
It's where you start your deep breathing.
I think that I might, do I talk to myself? I don't know if I talk to myself then. I might talk to myself then because I'm like freaking out.
I mean, it's not obvious that freaking out isn't working in your favor. Like maybe that adrenaline rush is just what you need to get going.
I know. And then I feel like the more I participate in live events, the more I'm getting used to it. And I'm like, I need to maintain the nice balance of freak out and like calmness, like have the adrenaline but also not be so bad that I choke and I don't know how to puzzle anymore.
That's right. You need some sign to your husband or somebody who can come by and say, you're doing great. You're going to be fine. When you're overhyped,
add cameraman behind my back and just talking about something where they clearly don't know what they're talking about.
Or if you're feeling too relaxed, somebody can come by and say, there's a lot of stakes going on here. So somebody can just kind of modulate your experience. Once the timer goes off, you unveil the puzzle. Well, actually, first of all, some places, so nationals, you're assigned a table. I think that is true of worlds as well. Places like St. Paul, it's sort of a mad rush for a table. Do you have kind of what you look for in a table situation?
I think like a clean table with good light that's all the previous St. Paul, before it was in that hall, we went off into the corner to try to find a table by the window because of the natural light.
Oh yeah. So good lighting. I feel like that is the bane of every puzzle competition. Is good lighting turns out really hard
because like sometimes glare is just too much,
right? Or you get something underlit and you can't actually see the details required to put something together.
Yeah.
All right. So once the timer starts, you unveil the puzzle. You do your obligatory swearing at it. Do you have a process for how you get from you've got the box to the pieces being out?
But this past nationals, I forgot to put my box in my box top holder. It's just that my box top holder was sitting next to it and it's propped up against the chair. And I'm like, oops, I forgot to do that, but I'm not going to stop now. But yeah, usually I have a box top holder and I try to slide it in there.
So this year at nationals, they had plastic tabs instead of the normal shrink wrap around. Do you have an approach to shrink wrap that you like?
I just have a sharp nail and then I rip it open. I tried the the other
I
way,
call
and
it the
I
Superman
can't.
method, where you're kind of drawing your hands across your chest.
Yeah, I can't get that to work at 100% of the time. So I'm like, I'm just gonna go with
Risk
this.
is too high.
Risk is too high.
Right. And then inner bags. Any strategy for that?
Just rip it open.
The aggressive method. And then, are you the kind of person who dumps it into one place, or do you sort of spread it out? What's your process for getting it out of the bag?
It depends on the puzzle, but most of the time I like do the rainbow method where I just spread it. I flip in a rainbow, leave the center free so I can build in the center. I don't like moving pieces too many times. So like if I flip and it's in the center, then I have to push them out of the way, and I'm like, when I'm building. So I don't like doing that. So I like making the rainbow.
Is that a method that you picked up somewhere, or a method that you just happen to be doing and worked out?
That's what I worked out myself, because I think I was just dumping in the middle and flipping, and then like ended up having to keep moving pieces, and I was like, this is a waste of time. I need to figure out a better solution. And then a couple of other people picked it up from my videos. So, and I think Allie picked it up, but I think she developed something on her own from mine that works better for her.
Yeah, she was talking about doing sort of two lines. I was calling that the double rainbow because it makes me laugh. But yeah, it sounds like she took yours, she gave you full credit for it, and then said that she's evolved it in a way that's useful for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tried a couple other methods, and I still like the rainbow method the best. But if it's a gradient, though, I will not rainbow it.
Do tell.
If you're rainbowing pieces, you're kind of still moving them, sure, right? Whereas like if you dump them out and then you flip right there, they're in that space. But so like if it's gradient, I don't need the space to build a frame or to build chunks and put them into places, because a gradient, you pick a color and you build out from that usually, right? You build around the color in order, and you don't even have to do you don't usually do the edges first either on that, because it's like easier to build the colors.
And you're usually just going for whatever catches your eye.
Mm-hmm. So if it's a gradient, then I know for a fact that like I don't need the space to build out, like put chunks in where they go or build the frame or something like that. So I just don't do the rainbow part, because that's an extra step of doing something that I don't need to do.
Right. Do you still like dump them in front of you and sort of like spread them out a little bit?
I spread them out a little bit because I need to see the colors, and you're still grabbing the color that you want, but the space you need to assemble the puzzle is smaller, and then grows as you get rid of the puzzle pieces around you, right? So like you don't need to have, as opposed to like a scene where you build like the carpet first, and then maybe like this window over here, but you kind of need the space to put them in place.
Right.
And then you're moving pieces more often because you're getting them out of the place that you want to put the chunk
Whereas
into.
A gradient is usually just a continuous build. Because I'm usually just looking for, okay, what's the brightest color that looks like what I've already built in the pieces that are left, bringing those in, because that makes it, like, to your point, it's an easy way of just going, okay, well, here's the next thing I need. It's one of those things over here. I'm just going to bring it over here and add it on and add it on.
Sometimes there's maybe another puzzle that's not a gradient, that's something that I think that you can build out, or not build from one chunk and not have like separate chunks that you've gone through. I won't do the rainbow. I'll just do the flip.
And so are you just typically a flip only sort of flip and sort at the same time? If you're,
I'll flip and sort the edges out. I do find that having the edges completed helps me spatially, because otherwise I'll have chunks that are nowhere near, that are not placed anywhere correctly, and then that's a problem for me sometimes. I'm like, why isn't this fitting? But I would love to train myself not to have to rely on edges to spatially, because I feel like it would eventually be faster if I could just build chunks and just connect them all and not worry about the edges.
Right. But it can be very helpful to see just the playing field that you're in.
Yeah. But I'll sort the edges out, and sometimes I decide to do the edges and sometimes I don't. It depends. And then I'll sort like the most eye-catching part of the puzzle. I usually, depending on the puzzle, if it does have distinctive like sections, I pull like 2 to 3 and put them into piles in my underneath the rainbow.
Are you looking to be fairly complete when you do those? Like if you're pulling like the orange building from the San Diego competition a few years back, are you looking to pull all the orange, or are you just like, here's a rough pile of these, that'll get me started?
I'll just do a rough pile, because searching for that one extra piece is gonna waste time. Like I'll do one pass of the rainbow and I'll just pull all the things out, and then I'll just find the other pieces. Like as long as I can get like something, they all attach to each other in some way, and if I'm missing out 1 or 2 pieces from the section, I'll figure that out later. I mean, like I'll pick it up and I'll immediately know where it goes. It's not going to waste my time.
Do you ever practice the just flipping? Do you have a like a methodology for that, or?
I don't only practice that because I just do the puzzle. If I'm going to dump one out, I'm going to do the puzzle, but I don't only ever flip. I like to, it's like, there's it's right way up and then it's wrong way up. I like to push the right way ups out of the way and then take a bunch of wrong ways up and flip it all at once, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I do that from time to time myself. It is something I feel like I need to pay more attention to, because I forget that that's a good option.
Yeah, because I feel like instead of flipping them one by one, you get like 5 in your hand and you flip it and it's one go. Like, and then you can, and sometimes I'll just go around grabbing the wrong ways in a pile in my hand and I'll just flip it. It's just like.
Once you have all your pieces out and flipped, do you sort of hit a regular rhythm at that point? Like you've sorted stuff into piles. You have your kind of, where you're going from the beginning or for the next few steps.
If I have been good about practicing and stuff, like the last speed puzzle I did, I totally forgot how to speed puzzle. I was like, what are you doing? But usually if I'm good at like practicing it and I'm able to figure, like, I think a lot of speed puzzling is based on looking at an image and being able to tell what you can do quickly right away, and like not making the mistake of doing something that ends up being hard instead.
Do you find that means you have to have a variety of approaches in your head to based on what kind of puzzle and what you see as opportunities?
Yeah, and then you have to recognize, and then you also have to, like, if you make a mistake in that, it costs you time, but you also have to recognize how to abandon it and how soon to abandon it.
That does seem like a skill.
Yeah. So like, I feel like the more you practice, the more you are able to recognize which patterns trip you up, which kind of things you're better at making, like, because I'll sort out a pile that grabs my eye, but then I'm like, no, this is not going to work out. So I should do this. I'll do something else. But like, because like the sky is easy to pick out sometimes. And it's maybe the brightest in the puzzle, but it's also maybe not the easiest to do.
It's true. Although I think even if you have sorted it out, you've at least reduced the number of remaining pieces you have to consider to make some of the other piling. Like if you're going to set aside the sky, like you pull it out and you're like, yeah, these are all the same. Now you have fewer pieces to consider.
Except if you had left the sky to end, then you wouldn't have wasted time pulling it out because it's already left at the end.
Yeah, I guess I'm saying I think that if you were to pull the sky and you decided not to do it, that was still a worthwhile exercise because now it's all its own thing and you've got fewer pieces to worry about for the parts you're going to do.
Yeah, I think though, if you can recognize that you can't do the sky right away and you could pull other pieces instead in that time that you would have used to pull the sky, and then at the end, if if you have left the sky to the end, it's already, you didn't make a pile because it's already in a pile.
I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So if you weren't having trouble with the sky creating more noise to find the pieces you were looking for, better to not have spent the time sorting it out.
Yeah.
Fair enough. You are the expert.
Well, what works for me doesn't work for everyone, right?
It's true. It's interesting how specific things do work for some people and not for other people, despite like people giving other people's processes like a fair shake and just deciding that they don't work for them. It's part of the joy of the process, in my opinion. It's like people have different ways of getting there.
A lot of it, I feel like, is calculating how much usefulness it is for you versus how much time it's wasting. Like Tammy loves to sort. I do not sort. But it's at some point when we're at pairs, I'm like, okay, you got to remember laws of diminishing returns, like how picky are you going to get about the sort versus like if we just go for the puzzling.
Right. So when you say she likes to sort and you don't, does that, I mean, you've talked about sort of pulling out the obvious things. Does she do a more thorough sort? Is that what
Yeah, she's like immediately, she'll sort the whole puzzle almost. She likes to do that. But I started a box picker, will always be a box picker, even though I've graduated to like the pieces are on the table and I was just like, oh, that looks interesting, I'll do that. And like I won't actually, I kind of sort as in like I kind of put them into but I don't do the whole puzzle. I only do like 2 to 3 sections at a time. I know like Tammy will do the whole thing. And I'm like, no, I just want to do this one. And while I'm at it, this other thing looks pretty interesting too, I guess. And like, it's like I don't have a plan when I'm not like, she's like, oh, I need to sort this texture, this color, this thing. And I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. I'll just grab a bunch of those pieces. It's like when I was a box picture, I was like, oh, I like this pink. I'll look for more pink.
Right.
Yep. Got some of them. Yeah.
Right. So are there other tactics and strategies that you use when you're putting the puzzle together after, like once you've got up and running? Or is it sort of, you've got a kind of start process and then you're just looking for the highest opportunities after that?
I do. Well, I guess, nah. I'll start and then I'll do, let's see. Let me just look at a puzzle and then think about how I would do it. Yeah, it's like, because like when you see the pieces too, it looks different than on the picture, like as a whole picture, right? So like if you grab something and then you're like, oh, that's not exactly what I think I would have done. But I guess also like if it's a hard puzzle, I feel like I would start with the smallest sections first and gradually move out to the bigger ones, because then you have less pieces to look for, less pieces to look through. And then you also have done the edges of the hard part. So you technically have gotten some of the hard part done. That's like, I feel basic logic, but
We're all about learning basic things here.
And then, but like, yeah, it's just like, how do you, I don't know. I haven't, it's so hard because I haven't speed puzzled so much lately.
Yeah, I should talk to you right before Worlds, because I suspect that you'll be up to, you'll have put in a lot of reps by then.
Yeah, I so far I don't have work lined up before Worlds, so I'm hoping to like get in some good practice then.
Do you ever run into what I've called the trough of despair, which is like midway through a puzzle where like some point I'm like, oh God, I don't know how this is all going to come together. Or is that something that, at your caliber of things, you're like, nope, like puzzles are all just, they're going to reveal themselves. I feel confident that I can get there.
I definitely spiral sometimes. At the first Worlds I spiraled. I was like, oh, what am I doing? I don't know. I visited your trough of despair.
There's plenty for everybody.
I don't think I did that at National. I mean, like I feel like that it depends on the puzzle, the time of day. Like sometimes I visit that trough a lot. Sometimes I just visit it once. Sometimes it's like I'm doing very well and I, just and never see it.
Right? Do you find that you have ways of sustaining your energy and momentum during those times, or is it just push through it and suffer?
Normally, the solution is to move on to another section. But if there's no section and that's the last section, then you're screwed. And then you just start swearing at the puzzle.
So that brings me to sort of the late game. So when you have relatively few pieces left, often it's sort of self-evident, right, where things go from there. But as we were talking about before, sometimes the hardest stuff is the stuff you leave to the end. Mm-hmm. Do you have any particular strategies for getting through the hard stuff? I've seen you sort of at least rough shape sort.
Yeah.
When there's areas of constant color. Do you have anything that gets you through the hard things that might show up at the end of putting a puzzle together?
Yeah, I just have to shape sort. I did a rough shape sort for Nationals 2022 because that blue was tough. I find the trick with shape sorting though is knowing when to do it. Sometimes you're too early and sometimes you're too late.
That's right. Yeah.
You got to get that right. You got to hit that sweet spot.
Do you have any tricks for hitting that, or have you developed an intuition?
Nope. It's like Worlds last year, me and Tammy should have shape sorted that Boston puzzle. We just never got to that point, and we should have done it. That's something you learn after the fact. So maybe just more time and experience. Then you were like, oh, I should have, shape sorted sooner. Or you're like, I shape sorted too soon because now there's too many pieces or something. And there was enough distinction that I could have put in more pieces before I shape sorted or something like that.
I feel like there's often a difference in opinion as to what should be happening at any given time. So like if you're like, we should be shape sorting, the other person is not necessarily ready for that. How does communication work on your both pairs and teams? And do you have to resolve issues like that? Or do you find that you guys are pretty in tune with each other at this point?
I think we're pretty good about talking it over. And then also like some people being vocal enough to be like, I need to do this now. Like I'm not contributing anything. And if I don't have a shape sort, I'm not going to contribute. And then usually there's one person who is like, oh yeah, I'll do that because I need to do it for myself. And then it helps the whole entire team.
I'm wondering how you, like, if you were to be saying like, I'm sort of stuck relatively speaking, and I need to do a thing to move on. And other people feel like that is sort of counter to what they need in the moment. Do folks tend to acquiesce to whoever's struggling the most, or like you said, is it mostly a conversation that gets figured out each time?
The conversation, usually there's a conversation, and then most of the time it gets resolved, or like, and a lot of times I feel like we always say, if you need to do it, do it. Like, I don't think any of the things we talk about having somebody like shape sorting, or I don't know, maybe the other one. What would the other one be? Would the other one be like color sorting? I guess I don't know.
Something like that, yeah.
But most of the time it's went to shape sort, and it's like most of the time we're like, well, it's not gonna hurt us.
I was gonna say shape sorting is one of those things that generally feels like, especially in a team scenario, somebody can be doing sort of in the background and just increasing the pace of the people who are still in the flow.
Yeah.
So what's your once the timer's done, aside from potentially another round of swearing or relief or cheering, do you have any particular processes or post-game rituals that you do?
Not really. I'm usually, somebody else notices, but I'm always like doing this to my heart because I'm like because I'm like trying to calm it down. I was like, oh yeah. Somebody pointed out to me. I was like, you always do this to your heart, and I'm like, yeah, or to your chest at least. Like I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to calm my racing heart.
Wow. So you get the adrenaline lasts the entire time, or maybe not even the adrenaline, but just the kind of pulsing effort for you to sustain the entire time.
Yeah. So then I just try to, because you get that crash after the adrenaline leaves. Most of the time, I'm just like really beat after it. And I'm like, all right, caffeine and sugar, where is it?
Do you, I feel like you mentioned that you guys, maybe on the Golden State Puzzlers at least, do you talk about sort of revisit what you could have been done better during the puzzle? Is that part of your regular approach to things? And I assume is that something that you do immediately or something that you do later?
For Golden State puzzles, usually we talk about it right away while it's fresh in our mind. And sometimes we take down notes and stuff. For myself, I always make a time lapse, and sometimes I'll watch it through and I'm like, I guess I could have done that better or something. And then sometimes I know immediately, like I was like, oh, I screwed that up. And sometimes I know it while I'm puzzling. So then it's just something you learn as you go.
I don't have a strong enough memory. I find that as I'm doing things, especially if I've messed up something in the early phase, by the time I'm done, to your point about adrenaline crash, I'm sort of like, I'm all done. And I'm like, I can't remember what the problem was.
Yeah. I mean, like all good sports, they always record their practices and everything, right? And they go back and review.
Yeah, watch game tape.
Yep. You got to watch the game tape.
Does anybody else on your team didn't watch game tape? Does Tammy watch game tape when it's the two of you?
I don't know, actually. I've never really talked about because I watch other people's stuff too. You know, obviously that's what any other sport, they watch the competition, right? Yeah. And so I watch other people's stuff, and I'm like, I haven't tried that strategy. Maybe I should try that. I have sent a couple to the team, and I was like, do you want to try this strategy? And we'll see what happens.
Cool.
I haven't practiced since then.
So you guys are preparing for Worlds. You and Tammy, and then all the Golden State Puzzlers. Are there other events that you're looking forward to coming up?
Tammy and I are going to Puzzle Parlay. In Rochester, New York.
Puzzle based.
Mm-hmm. It used to be strictly hand cut puzzlers, like makers that would get together and talk craft and stuff. But now I feel like it's expanded into also the laser cut wooden people, and then just fans of. But they also have a competition. They have a wooden puzzle competition. Artifact is sponsoring, I believe.
I've always thought wooden puzzle competitions must be hard. I've never tried it.
Yeah, I mean, Tammy and I did the one that Jonathan and Artifact put on for a couple of years in a row. This past year, we decided that the price was too high for us to enjoy it. Although the puzzle was very cute, and I instantly regretted it. But that's okay. I managed to get my hands on the puzzle. So,
all right, let's move into the speed round. I'm going to ask you just a couple of quick things. Just give me your off-the-cuff answer.
Okay.
Gradients, pattern, or fur?
Gradient. I don't like any of those, actually.
What would you prefer?
A nice, colorful, busy puzzle.
So jumbles, are those your area?
Jumbles.
Yeah, it's just a lot of things going on.
Well, I guess so, maybe. I don't know. I'm not as good at gradients as everyone else. I figured that one out for some reason. I'm just slower on them.
Yeah, same. I have to practice, and I am not good even after practice. So,
but I do like them. They're pretty. I just know that I'm not as quick on them.
Illustration or photo?
Illustration.
Next one I have is jumble or landscape?
Jumble.
Round or square?
I'm on the fence with that one.
Fair enough. Wood or cardboard?
Depends on the situation.
Oh. All right. I might need to know more about that in a minute. Individuals, pairs, or teams?
I like them all. I don't know. That one's a hard one. I don't think I could choose that one.
That's fair.
They all have different pluses and minuses.
I won't make you choose. Virtual or in person?
In person.
Ribbon cut or random cut?
Ribbon.
300, 500, or 1,000?
500.
What's your current favorite brand?
Ravensburger.
Do you have a favorite puzzle?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, where can people get more information about you?
I'm on Instagram. at pieces _of_the_ picture. And then me and Tammy have also started this YouTube channel called Two Puzzle Unicorns.
What inspired that?
Well, we've talked about it for a while. We're both very busy people, and Tammy recently retired, and I was like, do you want to do it now? And she's like, sure. And so we started putting it together and doing it. I've always thought, because like my husband watches all these, he's into photography, obviously. And then, so like, he watches all these YouTube shows, and a lot of them are two persons talking together. And also, like, I've seen, like, there's a great violin one called Two Set Violin. It's two people chit-chatting, cracking jokes, doing funny, silly things. And then there's another big YouTube show that I used to work on sometimes called Good Mythical Morning. Oh, yeah. And there are two people at a desk talking. I was like, hey, we're two people. Let's do two people talking at a desk about puzzles.
As of this recording, you had one episode out. It's fairly fresh, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we dropped it last week.
Do you have an idea of how often you might be dropping those?
Well, we're shooting the next one next week, and then if I can do the edit within a week, we're hoping to release it before July 4th. And then some puzzle fans are visiting the weekend after, and we thought, why don't we do an episode with them? Awesome. So we're going to shoot that, but I don't know when we're going to release it. And then we want to do something about the puzzle parlay. so that's taking place mid-July, and then we'll shoot stuff there, and then also probably shoot the show part somewhat afterwards. Well, we'll see what happens, because I leave for China like the week after.
I do like how you've got a little free time, so you're going to pile things on top of things on top of things.
And then, like, we just have all these ideas for episodes, so much so that we have plenty of content to shoot. We just need to have the time to shoot it and edit it. So so hopefully the next episode drops before the weekend before, or maybe July 4th, depending on how much I have to edit and how much time I have to edit. And then we'll see what happens with the rest. I don't know.
Well, I will say that if folks want to see some world-class chopstick puzzling, they should check out Two Puzzle Unicorns on YouTube. Yvonne Feucht, thank you so much for taking the time to join Peace Talks.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Peace Talks. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at peace_talks, and you can send email to peacetalkscast@gmail.com.